Justin Trudeau is in Washington this week to attend the NATO summit as pressure mounts on Canada to increase defense spending and as the war in Ukraine continues. Stung by allies' persistent criticism of its defense spending, the federal government is expected to unveil a timeline to meet NATO's military investment benchmark of 2% of alliance members' gross domestic product. However, they offered nothing specific and would only say that the timeline will be presented at the close of the ongoing NATO leaders' summit in Washington this week. Republican House Speaker Mike Johnson scolded the Trudeau Liberals for their lack of national defense spending, where Canada is failing to contribute 2% of its GDP as agreed by NATO allies.
When the grenades are close to your own backyard, it gives you a renewed sense of priority and commitment. I mean, by contrast, shamefully, Canada announced in the last few days or last couple of days that they won't be ponying up. They're not going to do their 2%. Why? Well, talk about riding on America's coattails. They have the safety and security of being on our border and not having to worry about that. I think that's shameful.
The Trudeau Liberals' defense spending has been a point of contention for the Canadian delegation at this year's NATO summit. According to the NATO estimate, Canada is near the bottom of the list of the 32 member countries, with military spending amounting to 1.37% of its GDP. Numerous U.S. senators wrote to Trudeau last month, expressing disappointment about Canada's spending commitments. A recent update by Canada's Defence Minister Bill Blair included a promise that Canada would contribute 1.76% of its GDP by 2029. However, we can't trust that, as a recent Budget Office report showed that Blair has overestimated military spending figures. NATO had to this point made the 2% of GDP figure on military spending a guideline. However, it will soon be a requirement. Speaking to a forum of international defense industry leaders on July 9th, NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg said that the alliance's ambition to spend 2% of GDP on defense will be considered a requirement rather than an aspiration. Blair did reiterate the government's plan to purchase a fleet of new submarines to replace the largely non-functioning ones we have now. According to Canadian Navy records, only one vessel in the Navy's costly submarine fleet, the HMCS Windsor, has been to sea in years, while maintenance and refit costs for our submarines exceed $3 billion. One other vessel, HMCS Victoria, was last at sea in November 2021, well over 2 years ago. Two others, HMCS Chicoutimi and Corner Brook, have been undergoing repairs for years.